Hey everyone, thanks for clicking on my video. This is Rocky, and this video is going to be the top moments of episode 8 of Constantine. As this was the mid-season finale, there were quite a few things that happened, as is the typical case with most mid-season finales, so I can go ahead and jump into some of my favorite moments now. We do have basically two kind of stories going on right now in this episode. Story 1 involving Zed, and story 2 involving Constantine. So in the beginning of the episode, we do get, nice little moment between Constantine and Zed, kind of showing off a little bit more of their playfulness with each other, as well as we do show that, John is, exhibiting some concern for Zed due to what happened in the last episode, and the fact that, she basically touched the heart of that fallen angel, and how it's kind of affecting her psychic powers as she's drawing these images. And John basically kind of just gives her a history lesson that she's seeing things that Imogen saw, basically, other angels, and then this weird twisted demon. So remember that demon, because we'll talk about that a little bit later. So with Zed's storyline in this episode, we essentially get her left behind. As again, John's kind of showing that concern for her and wants her to, rest, relax, recuperate, basically. Which is kind of odd considering they're, where they're headed, and that she could come in handy speaking Spanish and everything. But, we get the introduction of the Anne-Marie character, as she basically pops into the mill house, to request for John's help. So we get a little back and forth, between Zed and John over her, and kind of find out, they were at one point lovers, and Zed's kind of getting the feeling that that's why John doesn't want her to go, because, again, his feelings are kind of mixed for her right now, so that's kind of the vibe she's getting from him. But, either way, I think it's just that John wanted her to stay safe and protected. So, of course, he, advises her to just stay in the mill house and relax, and he was going to set, all the magic traps and everything before he left. Naturally, of course, Zed leaves and needs art supplies, right? So, while buying supplies, of course, she runs into the creepy model guy from the previous episodes, where that, implied that he was working for the Crusade, or at least the people looking for Zed. So, they go for a drink and everything, and through her psychic gifts, Zed learns that, this guy definitely is part of the Crusade, and surprisingly, he invites him back to the mill house, where she proceeds to kiss him and then basically kick the crap out of him, and kind of questioning him on, why he's following her and everything like that. And, we get confirmation that it is, her father is looking for her, and she's referred to as Mary. So again, that's going right back to the comics and, the Resurrection Crusade. Now, during this time, a couple other members of the Crusade show up that were basically following the creepy model guy, and unfortunately, or fortunately, depending how you look at it, he gets shot for his good efforts, as Zed was going to try and use him as a bargaining tool, and that did not work out for her. So Zed takes off running and has a scuffle with the woman, the blonde woman of the group, and they have a nice little exchange and fighting, and Zed ends up, sending her through one of the mysterious doorways in the mill house that leads to some, place of nothingness and shadow, it looks like. So, who knows what fate's gonna, have for her, but, she's out of the picture at this point. So Zed's continuing to run from this other guy, and the other guy kind of reminded me of, like, Jason from the old slasher films, where, he's just kind of walking along and sneaking up on her, and she can't see him at all, and unfortunately he comes out of nowhere basically behind her, injects her with this drug basically, and she passes out. So that's kind of where her storyline ended in this episode. So going back to what's going on with John's arc. So again, I mentioned we get that basically astral appearance of Anne-Marie, and she's requesting for John's help. And, we learn that, basically she sees that John owes her a debt because of Newcastle. So again, everything's going back and revolving around Newcastle. So Chaz and John go down to Mexico, and they're talking it over with Anne-Marie and find out that, something's been basically taking these babies, and, it's definitely something of a demonic origin based off she's burned on her chest from a cross. But yeah, it's taking the babies and killing the mothers. And, we get some good back and forth between Anne-Marie and John. Learn that, Anne-Marie's basically the one that brought John into the occult circles. Now, he was already practicing magic as a child and as a young adult, but she brought him into the world, basically, and expanded his horizons on magic and how to better use it and things like that. And again, we do touch that they were, brief lovers, but, she definitely had a lot of resentment towards him due to the events of Newcastle, as well as, he was basically a womanizer, right? So, all that just left a bad impression on her. We also see that Chaz is, pretty protective of hers. He gives John a hard time about the way he's treating her and the way he's saying things. But, he does have John's back as he talks to Anne-Marie and kind of lets her know that this is how John is dealing with what happened at Newcastle by not having people be too close, basically keep them at a distance. As again, he, kind of internalizes all those feelings, which isn't, definitely not healthy, but, that's the way he's kind of dealing with this. She dealt with Newcastle by going and becoming a nun. All these characters that, survive Newcastle are finding different ways of basically trying to cope with what happened there and kind of, comfort their souls somewhat. Now we do get, we do get a main baddie in this episode. It comes in the form of one of Eve's sisters. And John kind of gives this explanation of how, like, the sisters basically chose to basically become, heads of parts of hell basically, rather than, live under servitude and, the garden and everything like that. Now, through some magic and spellcrafting, John comes to the realization that the demon woman is Lamashtu. He names several of them till he gets that hit when he actually sees her in the form of the other nun. And, this Lamashtu is basically more or less kind of a vampire that, enjoys, unfortunately, eating babies. So this is, messing with John's head because she's not eating these babies, she's collecting them. Which just, throws him off. And through some investigation and things like that, John learns that the family being affected, by speaking with the grandmother family, it seems that they're descendants of these Brujerian or Brujerian warlocks that were supposedly wiped out during the Great Flood. But, based off what he learns there is they've been hiding basically in the shadows. And this really kind of throws John a little bit. And we actually see quite a bit of fear in John in this episode. And that's due to the fact that these warlocks were insanely powerful. And, they were basically around from, essentially the time of Adam and Eve, more or less. They're very, very powerful warlocks, and he doesn't have any magic to counter what they can do. So just like I said, we see a lot of fear, and Matt Ryan portrayed that very well. And, through this discussing with Anne, John comes to the realization that these warlocks are the rising darkness that's been happening. They're the ones that have been in the shadows, kind of manipulating, enhancing everything. Now, this does connect back to the comics, as these Brujerian warlocks were actually a sect in the comics, all male, and they basically, in the comics, were literally trying to destroy heaven. And their way of doing this, or their weapon of choice, was essentially the primordial darkness that existed before, God brought light into the world. So in the comics, they basically manipulated events and just to get people to believe in the darker side of the supernatural. So people were beginning to essentially put more of their idea, more of their thoughts, more of their faith in the evil, which was allowing this, primordial darkness to grow. And, so it seems like that may be kind of where they're going by using these warlocks. And, again, strongly connecting to that rising darkness is, the primordial darkness would literally be that rising darkness. Now, we do get, some investigation work, and then we get a trap, basically, that John sets up for Lamashtu by basically glamoring this chicken covered in the blood of the head of the family right now, the Hugo. And, he glamours it so that it appears to be a baby to Lamashtu. And, Anne-Marie, of course, more or less volunteers to do this. It seemed like John was kind of leaning that way. But again, he kind of, doesn't always like to ask people to do things. He kind of either tricks them into doing that or hopes that they're going to do something. But in this case, Anne-Marie, fully volunteers to go ahead and be the one to present this glamored baby. So, she takes off with the baby. And then, of course, our, Team Constantine, if you want to call them that, chases after her into the sewers. And, they find the babies, of course, thankfully still alive. And while they're trying to escape with them, Lamashtu shows up. And she's, at this point very pissed because, she thought she was getting a third baby and she got a chicken. So she ends up, confronting John and Anne-Marie. And John makes a, again, he's the ultimate con man, right? So he makes a play at her by threatening to basically kill the baby he's holding because he realizes, she needs to deliver them alive for some reason, for some ritual or something more than likely. But, he threatens that he's going to kill this baby if she doesn't give him information on this cult or this sect. And, she, does fall for it. And basically gives him information that they're essentially trying to remove the veil between hell and earth so that all the minions and lieutenants and masters of hell and everything can basically just dominate the earth. And, people would have no place to hide from them anymore. So after getting this information, John realizes, of course, they have to get away from her at this point. So he has this amulet of Pazuzu, and he basically invokes the name of that demon to deal with Lamashtu, as apparently they were cellmates more or less in hell. And, we see this brilliant blue light, flame, and, we see her essentially get, dragged away into a portal, it looks like, whether it's back to hell or some other place. But, either way, she's gone and dealt with it at this point. So, John and Anne-Marie are thinking everything's fine and safe, and they're, trying to leave, and they hear these sounds of like another baby crying and some other sounds, and they look, and we see, essentially the real life version, again, of what Zed was drawing earlier in the episode. This creature, this Evanche, is basically this, considered more or less like a demonic juggernaut. It's, according to John, completely unstoppable. And, John is just continually getting thrown for a loop in this episode because, we have these warlocks that were supposedly gone during the Great Flood and completely wiped out. They're still existing. And these demons that, should not be around are around. And, Anne-Marie sees this situation. She realizes that, based off their discussions on sacrifice and everything, that, at this point a sacrifice is needed, and she decides to shoot John and so she can escape with the two babies and basically leave him as bait for this Evanche. And we basically are left with John bleeding out from his stomach and this demon getting closer. I don't think that John's necessarily going to resent her for doing that, as it seems like something he himself would do. As again, we've seen that in earlier episodes, as well as it's definitely in the comics throughout, that John is completely willing to sacrifice those around him for what he considers the greater good on any given situation. So, we're left with the cliffhanger of Zed, getting knocked out in the mill house, and, Constantine bleeding out in the sewers under this church. So some big cliffhangers there. And the one thing I gotta say about this episode is the special effects and lighting I thought were way above what they've been. They like I said, they do some CGI in their special effects, but I definitely saw a lot of practical effects in this that I really enjoyed. I really love practical effects that are done very well, because it just shows the skill of the artist behind them, and I think that's something that Constantine has really been pushing. But again, with the lighting effects from the candlelight in the churches to various scenes where we have this bright light in the back, moonlight behind trees and things like that, and then it's gone, all kind of reflecting this light being covered by this rising darkness is how I took it. But very well done scenes, I thought. Great episode. Like I say, Constantine has continued to build and rise with each episode. Now, this idea of these Bruharian warlocks is something I wish they would have introduced earlier on in the season, because that's kind of been the one thing that's been lacking from the series, is we don't have that overall big bad, big enemy, big adversary thing like that. I mean, it's always just been this rising darkness, and we had nothing to really connect to that. Now we do, and this is going to lead into the second half of this 13 episode season, and hopefully into season 2. Again, we haven't received confirmation about a season 2 yet, but based on the ratings, how they've been going, I think it's going to happen, but I think they're going to wait until the end of the 13 episodes to make that decision. But if we get anything beforehand, I'll definitely, make a video on that, as again, this is the mid-season break. So, how has Constantine been so far? Now, as a fan, I definitely want to give it an A+ rating, but realistically, based on everything's happened, and with the change-ups and episode order and things like that, realistically, I have to give it like a B- for a rating, which is still good. I mean, but I can't just give it that A+ that I would really love to give it. So again, a B+ for the season so far. And like I've said in my other reviews, the reason I don't give like a rating on each episode is, again, we don't necessarily see that payoff of an arc, so that can kind of fudge what someone may think about a particular episode if it doesn't have like an opening and closure kind of thing to it. In this case, we have some closure, and we have the revelation of this rising darkness. So again, for a rating, B-, strong B-, but a B-. I've thoroughly enjoyed Constantine so far, and I'm really excited to see what we're going to see in the back half. Based off the preview for the next episode, we definitely see that John and Zed seem to get out of their respective problems, with John basically getting out of it by, looks like, basically inviting a demon to essentially possess him, which is really odd considering the conversation he had with Papa Midnight in an earlier episode, saying how he never wanted to invite other powers into him. But I guess when your life's on the line, you're going to make some decisions. So this is kind of a little bit of a play off how it was handled in the comics during the Resurrection Crusade, and with Nergal and John, where Nergal basically gave John some of his blood in order to survive. So I had a feeling they were going to go that route, but in this case, looks like they're going another route. Now it's just a matter of which demon he's going to invite to enter his body. Is it going to be this Pazuzu that he has an amulet for, or is it going to be something else? We'll just have to wait and see when the show comes back up. I believe it's coming back early January, if I recall correctly. So I'll definitely be picking up on my reviews when it comes back, and as well as I'll be popping in some bonus videos throughout this time as well. So definitely let me know down in the comments below, what bonus videos you would like to see, as well as what you thought about this episode, and definitely your impressions of Constantine in general for this first half of this season. Like I said, for myself, I've really enjoyed the season so far, and it's constantly getting better and better, so it has me very hopeful for what we're going to see when we get back from the break. Hope you've enjoyed the video. If you did, go ahead and give me a thumbs up and share the video over Facebook, Twitter, Google+, whatever social media works best for you. And please subscribe to my channel. As like I said, I will be picking up with Constantine once it comes back, and continue to do my reviews of the other Marvel and DC television shows going on right now. And if you have subscribed to my channel, thank you very much. Really appreciate you coming on board, and look forward to having some great conversations with you guys, either down in the comments below or over Twitter, Facebook, however you want to reach out to me. Definitely do it. I look forward to talking with you. All that being said, I hope you guys have a great rest of your day now. Bye.